Namaste yogis, this is Stephanie Moore coming to you from beautiful sunny Florida. The sun is just coming up now as I begin my class. I hope you enjoy the sounds of nature that I have here in my backyard and the beautiful sun coming up. I'm happy to offer you today a beginner's class. For people that have little to no exposure to yoga, I'm going to really take it down a notch as far as flexibility goes. You really just take it at your own pace, the way yoga classes should always be done. I will offer you some modifications, so if anything doesn't feel right for you, I will offer that you go into child's pose, which we'll go into fairly early on in the class, so that you can have an understanding of what that pose is. Take a break, grab some water, and then just meet us back on the mat. The point is that we just continue our practice the way it feels best in our bodies. And I'd like for us today to start on our backs, coming down on our backs, finding a position called Supta Baddha Konasana. And it may or may not feel comfortable on the opening of your hips. So if you have some hard-covered books nearby or some rolled up towels that you can go and grab now, that would be great. And then you can just use them as a support underneath the outside edges of your knees as you come down into this pose. So when we release ourselves down, we're going to slowly come down onto our forearms and then release ourselves all the way down onto our back. And then we're going to take the soles of our feet, so the bottom edges of our feet are going to come together. And then we're going to allow the hips to come out to the side. It may feel more comfortable for you to allow the feet to make more of a diamond shape, the legs to make more of a diamond shape, so that the heels are further away from the groin. And then begin to settle down here. A little bit of music for us. And just notice the opening here in the hip flexor joint. And the reason why I really wanted us to come into this pose to begin with was to open up the hip flexor, which in this time we are in quarantine still for COVID-19. This helps to open and externally rotate our hips. Instead of having them in that stationary forward-facing direction, we can open them up and start to open up through the inner groin and the outer hips, which feels really, really nice. And then feel the outside edges of your feet grounding down. Feel the outside edges of your knees beginning to reach ever so gently down towards the earth. Maybe walk your shoulder blades in towards each other to allow the knees to, the ears to come a little bit further away from the ears. And then we'll rock the head from side to side. In today's class, I was hoping that we could come into a little bit of connection with our heart space. So your hands now, take them on top of your heart space, one hand on top of the other, just connecting with your own rhythm. And connecting with your own heartbeat. And just noticing what that feels like for you. Maybe having the connection to really tap into what it feels like to have that mind-heart connection. Start to notice your breath. Let the breath become a little bit deeper. Maybe drawing the breath from deep in the low belly. And letting the breath come all the way to the top of the head. Open the mouth and let it go. Big breath in from the low belly. Draw it up to the top of the head. Open the mouth and let it go. One more like that. Lower belly expands. Breath comes all the way to the collarbones. Open your mouth and let it go. Feeling that connection of your hands to your heart one more time. Setting an intention for your practice. For me today, it's going to be to feel gratitude just for my own beating heart. I'm going to just take it down a notch today. Just be so grateful for the fact that my heart is beating, that I'm alive, that I'm able to experience this beautiful weather in Florida. The birds are singing. And this feeling that life really is going to be okay. This too shall pass, and all will be well in the world again. One more deep breath in. Open the mouth and sigh out any stress or tension. And then take your hands to the outside edges of your knees and just use your hands, the strength of your hands, to just gently bring your inner knees back towards midline. And then walk your feet out as wide as your mat. So let your feet come to the outside edges of your mat. And then let your inner knees knock in. And feel now that internal rotation of your hips. So we were just externally rotating the hips. Now we're internally rotating the hips and just noticing how that feels. And then just letting both knees, keeping the feet exactly where they are, let both knees drop over to the right side. Feeling now this opening through the left hip flexor. As you draw the inner knee down towards the ground, you're going to feel a little bit into the side of your leg, the IT band, and a beautiful little muscle called the tensor fascia latae. I love to say that. Let the left shoulder blade draw towards your mat a little bit, and then take the gaze over towards the left side, towards the left shoulder, so that you can get this beautiful twist into the spine now. The spine moves in 6 directions, so this is one of the 6 directions. This is the twisting direction, transverse. Just giving it so much space. Waking the spine up. If you feel like you're not getting enough of a stretch here, you can take the outside edge of the right ankle, the right foot, and let it just gently sit on top of the outside edge of the left knee. It forms a little bit of a bind and can help increase the stretch in the left hip flexor. Make sure that you're breathing nice and deep. Let all of the muscles of your body simply relax. Follow your breath, the natural rhythm of your breath. And enjoy this stillness. If you have the bind, go ahead and release that right foot back onto the outside edge of the mat and slowly let the feet and knees come back into midline. Now let's let the knees drop off to the left side of the mat, feeling now the stretch into the right side hip flexor. Draw the right shoulder blade down towards the mat and take the gaze over towards the right shoulder. And once again, if you notice right away, maybe you're more flexible through the hip joint, you can take that outer left ankle and just rest it gently on top of the outer right knee. It just helps to bring the inner right knee down towards the floor a little bit more. Take a deep breath in. Exhale it out. Inhale in. And then if you have the bind, release the left foot back onto the outside edge of the mat and slowly bring the knees back to midline. And then just windshield wiper them back and forth a little bit, just finding this little movement, this little mobility in the hips, bringing some synovial fluid into these ball and socket joints. And then draw the left knee into the chest. Extend the right leg out nice and straight. And then holding onto the back of the left thigh, begin to straighten out through the left heel. So drawing the left heel up towards the ceiling. See how that feels. And then maybe extending a little bit more, drawing the heel up towards the ceiling a little bit more and walking your hands up, maybe towards the low calf. And then continuing to extend out through the heel and seeing if there's any ability to straighten the thigh bone a little bit further towards the ceiling. It doesn't matter how straight your leg gets. It's the intention to reach the heel up towards the ceiling and draw the toes towards the face. We're looking for a stretch into the hamstrings here, which helps to release the low back. So keep drawing the left hip bone down towards the mat. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And then draw the knee back into the chest. And then release the left foot down onto the ground. Draw the right knee into the chest, hold on to the shin, and extend the left leg out. Feel the nice release as you draw the knee towards the right armpit. So we're getting this compression in the hip joint now. And then once again, we're going to take our hands behind the right thigh and start to reach the right heel towards the ceiling. It doesn't matter if your leg is straight or bent, it doesn't matter. It's the intention of pushing the heel up towards the ceiling. Maybe the hands can walk a little bit further up the leg now, and the intention to stretch the leg becomes a little bit easier. Just enjoying a gentle stretch into the hamstrings here, opening up through the hamstrings. Let the back of the head be so heavy, let the jaw be unclenched, follow the breath. Take a deep breath in and sigh it out. Let the right foot come down to the mat. And let the left foot come down onto the mat. And then keeping the heels directly in front of your hip points, press the back of the head in, press your triceps into the mat, and feel your palms facing each other like two sunflowers facing each other. And then press into your heels. Start to curl your tailbone up and away from the mat. And then begin to push into your heels. Lift your seat off of the mat. Lift your low back off of the mat. And then lift your mid back off of the mat. Pressing into your shoulder blades now and the back of the head. Trying to find this opening through the low back. We're getting into the gluteus maximus here by pressing into the heel and curling the tailbone up towards the sky. Take a deep breath in and sigh it out. Inhale in. Now as you exhale out, slowly articulate your spine down. So drop down through the mid-back. Curl down through the low back. Keep curling the tailbone towards the ceiling until you finally reach the low back down, and then the tailbone finally touches down. Let the knees rock from side to side. Release the low back a little bit. And then we're going to do that one more time. So lining up, making sure the heels are right underneath your hips. Pressing down into the heels. If you'd like to walk them a little bit closer, you can. Pressing down through the triceps, extending the fingertips up towards the ceiling. Pressing the back of the head in, the shoulder blades attached down to your mat. Just curl the tailbone up, curl the pubic bone up. Feel the low back coming off of the mat, and then follow the spine in that beautiful motion. So press through the heels, slowly lift the low back, slowly lift the mid back. And then pressing into the triceps, into the shoulder blades, Lift the upper back off of the mat, keeping the chin away from the chest, but puffing the chest up towards the ceiling, getting this beautiful extension into our spine. So another one of the directions that the spine moves in is flexion and extension. And we're putting the spine into extension now, which is very, very healthy for the low back. Maybe reaching down and feeling your glutes, making sure that they're firing, asking them to fire, to push into the heels, to strengthen the glutes so they can support us while we're sitting and working at home, while we're driving, while we're walking downstairs. All of the things. Take a deep breath in. And then as you exhale, lower down the opposite way. So mid-back lowers down, low back lowers down. Finally, the tailbone touches in. Let's take the feet as wide as the mat again and let the knees knock in, finding what's called Constructive rest pose. This is where we let the spine just neutralize and come back into its alignment. And then let's extend the legs long. Let's take a full body stretch. So extend the legs out nice and long, and then reach your arms up above you, finding this beautiful length into the spine here. So reaching the toes away from the body, reaching the fingertips away from the body. And then we're going to find this beautiful pose called Bananasana, or crescent shape pose. So begin to take your feet over to the right side of your mat. And if it feels okay for you, crossing the left foot on top of the right, finding this beautiful stretch down the left side body. And then I'm just going to move my teeth, moving your hands, keeping them on the ground, but moving them over towards the right side of your mat. Maybe you can interlace the webbing of your fingers and just feel this beautiful stretch all the way down the left side body. I hope you can still hear me. So you're making your body into this crescent shape or this banana shape by having integration or some crunching here into the right obliques, and this beautiful opening into the left side body, this crescent moon shape that you've made with your body. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, reach over to the right a little bit more with your fingers and your toes. And then inhale everything back to center. Start to walk your feet over to the left side of your mat. And then if it served you on the left side, you can cross the right ankle on top of the left ankle. And then walk the hands and arms extended over to the left side of your mat. Integration through the left side of your body, but this beautiful opening all the way down the right side of the body. So taking your breath into the right rib cage, and then exhaling, maybe finding that shape a little bit deeper. Inhaling, open the mouth and side out. And walking everything back to midline, feeling that beautiful length once again into the spine. And then finding the exact opposite feeling. So drawing your knees into your chest and taking the face up to the knees and really making yourself into a tight, tight ball. So this beautiful opening of the back and then this curling in of the back, taking the back into flexion now. And then grab behind the backs of the knees and see if you can start to rock and roll up and down your spine, just using your feet as momentum as they come up and over your head and then come down towards your mat. And then finally seeing if you can maybe balance right on your seat bones here, holding on to the backs of the knees the way you were when you were rocking. And just playing with touching down with your toes. Maybe you really need to leave your toes grounded on the ground, but getting into a little bit of core work here by pulling on the backs of the knees and drawing the shoulder blades together, drawing the collarbones forward, this proud heart, and working on the eventual pose called Navasana or boat pose. So this is kind of the beginning stages of boat pose. We're really drawing the navel into the spine, We're really taking the shoulder blades together. We're finding this beautiful posture. And then eventually we're looking for the pose that allows us to take the shins to parallel, so parallel to our mat. And then holding on to the backs of the knees is sort of the first modification. And as we move through our yoga practice, we find different variations of bow pose, which will allow us to release the hands and straighten the legs and find different variations of the pose. But today, seeing as this is a beginner's class, we're just going to keep the toes just hovering above the mat and see how that feels for us. If you need to touch down, go ahead and touch down and take a break, and then see if you can hover for just another moment. Take a deep breath in, draw the shoulder blades together, feel the core heating us up, and then exhale, take the feet down. Take the hands over to the right side of your mat and let the heels come to the left side of your mat, and just walk yourself over into what's called tabletop pose. So tabletop pose is a beautiful place to begin our yoga practice because we get to move into some beautiful movements of the spine again. So finding your wrists right underneath your shoulders and finding your knees right underneath your hips. And then looking back and making sure that you can't see your feet. Making sure that your feet are in line with your knees so that you're not taking them farther out than your knees or more in than your knees. So you're nice and anatomically lined up. And then looking down at your hands and making sure that your fingers are spread very, very wide, and that you're pressing down through the base of the index finger and the base of the thumb. That will help to activate the inner forearm, which will help decrease that feeling of your wrists being tired or sore. So really pressing down into the inner L's of your hands will really help to activate the forearms. And then we can just start to make some sort of organic movement. So for me, I love to just rotate my shoulders over my wrist. It starts to get into that lubrication of the shoulder and the hip joint, this little movement. So I'm just using my shoulder as like a little compass to just rotate around my wrists. And then we can change directions. And if at any time this feels a little bit like too much on your knees, you can go ahead and grab a towel from your bathroom and just fold it up into a nice rectangle and put it underneath your knees. And even for your wrists, you can find washcloths and fold them up into a nice thick rectangle and put them underneath the heel of your palm. That will help lift up your palm and decrease the amount of flexion that you have here in your wrists. And then just seeing how that feels, and then seeing what it feels like to come back and sit on top of your tucked toes. So for me, I have my toes tucked under. I'm even going to make sure that my pinky toe is under. And for a lot of people, this is a very, very uncomfortable position. So if it's uncomfortable right away, go ahead and just see if you can stand on your knees. The reason I'm bringing us into this very uncomfortable pose, and some of my yoga teachers call it toe torture, I call it toe sit. I think that sounds a little bit nicer, or toe squat. Is because we're opening up into the plantar fascia now, the ligaments of the inner arch. And when we do that, we help ourselves avoid a diagnosis of plantar fasciitis, which is an incredibly uncomfortable diagnosis of the foot, where the ligaments become very, very tight and it becomes difficult to walk. So we're just opening up the ligaments here from keeping our feet flat in shoes too often. This helps to open them up. And then we'll just do some wrist opening exercises. So closing the hands into fists and then opening and closing, like we're flicking water off of our fingers, will help to warm up the wrist joints. And then taking the hands and interlacing them together. If it's too much, begin to come up off of your toes. I hope nobody's cursing me right now. Finding figure eights, and then taking the opposite thumb on top, and then finding figure eights in the opposite direction. I'm never really sure if I'm moving in the opposite direction or not. I can never really figure this one out, but I know it feels really, really good on my wrists. And then taking the backs of your wrists together, the backs of your hands, and just rotating this way, getting into the backs so that we stretch out our forearms as well. And then finally, releasing your hands down onto the mat into that tabletop position, and then just tapping your toenails down onto the mat will help bring some blood and circulation back into the feet, into the plantar fascia. And then with the tops of the feet down, maybe it will feel better to sit back on top of your shins now. We're getting into a little stretch in the front of our shins here called the anterior tibialis. I'm a little bit of an anatomy nerd these days because I'm taking an anatomy refresher course with my teaching studio, so I love to throw out some big words like that once in a while. And if you feel like if you're a runner and you feel like you could use a really good stretch in the front of your shins, maybe take the hands back behind you and see what it feels like to just lift the shins off of the mat. And if it's too much for you or painful, just don't do it, it's fine. And then drop the shins back down. Let's come back into tabletop. And let's move through a pretty standard or classic movement in yoga. It's called cat-cow. It's where we hammock and we round out the spine. So I'm going to try and give you as many cues as I can so that you can understand what this motion feels like without having to look at me. So take a look down at your mat, looking down between your thumbs. Make sure your fingers are pressed very wide, remembering to grip into the fingertips and press into the L parts of your palms to your hands to really activate your forearms here. So we're going to press into the tops of the feet, and we're going to take the chin up to the sky, and we're going to take our tailbone up to the sky, and we're going to let the spine hammock, coming into what's known as cow pose. So we're really taking the spine into a U shape. This is the extension part of the spine, of the movement, and then when we want to go into flexion, we do the opposite. So we start to tuck the tailbone under, we start to push the mat away, we start to take the chin towards the chest, and we dome out through the upper back. We push the mat away, we draw the navel into the spine, and we find what's called cat pose. So think angry cat here, looking back between your thighs, feeling the tailbone draw between your thighs, and then doing the opposite again. Start with the tailbone, let it curl up, start to take the gaze up, start to let the chest sink between the arms, and let the spine come down towards the ground. Take the gaze up, take the chin up, and then just moving with your breath. So we inhale when we come in for cow, and then we exhale when we curl everything in for cat. Chin to chest, tailbone under, push the mat away, round out the upper back. You'll even feel your shoulder blades coming down towards your armpits. Inhale, open up, tailbone up, spine down, gaze up. Exhale, curling. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, curl in, chin to chest. Push the mat away, dome out through the upper back. Tuck the tailbones between the thighs, and then coming into neutral. That's great. So we've moved the spine in 4 of its 6 directions. So we did that twist at the beginning, and now we're moving forward and backwards, so extension and flexion, and then we can move into side bending. So in order to do a side bend, we just look over the left shoulder towards the left heel and feel that opening. Actually, we did this already. We did this when we were in our crescent shape pose or banana asana. And then inhale back to center, and then exhale, look over the right shoulder at the right heel. Still feels really great. You still get that beautiful side stretch in this pose. Inhale, come back to center, and let's just open up through the shoulders a little bit. So let's press down through the right hand, and let's inhale the left arm nice and high. So for me, when I try to inhale my arm nice and high, I kind of get stuck here. I had some shoulder injuries when I was younger, so what really helps me is to tuck the right toes under and extend the right leg back a little bit. When I extend the right leg back, it helps me really take my fingertips up towards the ceiling. So see if that works for you. Take a deep breath in, and then as you exhale, reach underneath the right armpit and reach as far across to the right side as you can, and then let your whole left side of your face drop down towards the mat. And then you can draw the right knee back into the ground, and you get this beautiful stretch on the outside edge of your left shoulder. You can walk the right arm nice and forward, keeping your balance. This pose is called thread the needle. Take a deep breath in. Exhale it out. And then walk the right hand back in front of your face. Use the strength of your right arm to lift you off of the mat. Take the left arm nice and high into the sky. Maybe you extend that right leg back again. Open up through the left side body, and then drop the left hand down onto the mat. Bring the right knee back in line with the left. Let's try that on the right side. So press into the left hand, tuck the left toes under, and inhale the right arm nice and high. I kind of get stuck here so that when I extend the left leg back, I can really open up. And I feel that beautiful stretch in the right side of my chest. I take a deep breath in, and then as I exhale, I reach all the way underneath that left armpit until I can't reach anymore, and then I drop the whole right side of my right arm down onto the mat. I pull the left knee back in line with the right, and then I extend the left arm forward so that I get this beautiful stretch all the way down the outside of my right shoulder. So my right temple is very heavy. I'm getting a stretch along the right outside edge of my right shoulder. I'm breathing. And I'm letting my whole upper body just relax down on top of that right arm. When we're working at our desks, the outside edges, our upper neck, back, and shoulders can become very, very tense and tight. This is a beautiful way to open up through the upper back. Take a deep breath in, and then exhale. Draw the left hand back in front of the face, press into the left hand, lift the right arm high into the sky, maybe extend that left leg, open up through the chest, and then drop down, finding that tabletop again. Let's come into child's pose. So this will be your resting pose. Let's take the feet or the knees as wide as the mat, or maybe wider if that helps you. Bring the big toes to touch together, and then start to press back so that you get the hips reaching towards the heels. And once they can't reach anymore, start to walk your hands forward. Now you might find that your head is just kind of hanging here and it's nowhere near your mat. And if that's the case, please pile your fists one on top of each other to find support for your forehead. Don't let your head just hang. But if it can reach down towards the mat, let it reach down towards the mat, and then walk the hands out. Feeling the stretch into the outside edges of your hips. And reaching your tailbone back behind you as you push the mat away with your hands. So this stretches all through the upper back, through the lower back, the outer hips. It's a beautiful extending stretch here. And if you can find a way to breathe and relax into it, it can become a beautiful resting pose. If at any time a pose is not working for your body, or you're just wanting to take a break, this is the place where all the intelligent yogis go to take their rest. Maybe rocking the forehead from side to side, activating into the third eye chakra, place of higher wisdom. A place where we don't go often enough to find the answers to the questions we're looking for. And then walking the hands back in slightly, finding ourselves back in that tabletop position. So walk your knees back, and then walk your feet back in line with your knees once again. And then we're going to come into balancing tabletop. So we have our tabletop, but we're going to move into some balancing with it now, some engagement of the core a little bit. So begin to ground down through both hands, ground down through both feet, and then extend the left leg back behind you. Let the toes touch down, maybe rock back and forth a little bit, just feeling into that plantar fascia again. And then press down through both hands nice and equally, keeping the low back nice and stable. Use the strength of your glute to gently lift the left leg up so that the heel is in line with the hip. Flex through the foot, and then feel what it feels like to point through the foot. So flexing or pointing, either is accessible here. I prefer to point. I think it has a little bit more engaging gluten here. And I think even it's a bit of a pointing, so it's kind of a mix between a flex and a point, because I'm not quite taking my toes straight out. And then as you really press into that left hand, see if you can find a total balance here. So this might be enough for you, but maybe you want to try a little bit more by extending the right arm forward. So when you extend the right arm forward, you're still looking down at your mat so that your neck is nice and long. There's no crinkles in the back of your neck. And your thumb is facing up and the palm is facing towards midline. The shoulder's away from the ear and you're feeling all of that engagement through the left glute. Take a deep breath in. Exhale it out. Inhale in. And then exhale everything back down to center. Let's keep the knees a little bit closer this time. Let's find child's pose with the knees a little bit closer. Let the tops of the feet come down onto the mat and then push yourself back into a closed-kneed child's pose. It may feel comfortable for you, it may not. If it's not comfortable for you, go ahead and take your knees out wide. Take the hands forward. There's a good chance the forehead will not be able to reach the mat here, so go ahead and stack your fists one on top of each other, or your palms one on top of each other, and feel this beautiful stretch into your hip flexors. If you'd like, if the crown of the head does come down, you can sweep the hands back behind you and let the palms face up, getting into a stretch in the upper back. Find your breath. Maybe your heart is beating a little bit stronger now, connecting with that and noticing how that feels for you. Feeling empowered, excited to begin your yoga journey. And being so easy and gentle with yourself, accepting your body and your flexibility exactly for what it is right now, not trying to change it or wish it was any different. Just noticing that yoga is a practice and that every time we show up on our mat, our practice improves even just a little bit. So just remembering that and being so patient and confident with ourselves. Tucking the toes under and then extending the right leg back. Maybe finding that little gentle rocking movement, getting into the fascia and ligaments of the inner arch again. And then pressing down, keeping the gaze between the thumbs, engaging the right glute, firing it up, and then lifting the heel in line with the hip. So the tendency is to want to kind of open the toes out to the side, keeping the toes pointed down towards the floor before you do your pointing, so that we keep both hip points towards the floor like two, as if you were a car with two headlights pointing right down towards your mat. Or you can think about it like your low back so flat that you could put a cup of tea on there, but not too hot. And then ground down in through the right hand and see what it feels like to extend the left arm this time. So draw the shoulder away from the ear, let the palm face midline, let the thumb face up. Draw the core into the spine, so really wrap it in towards midline, feeling like you have a corset on so that you can really engage through the core. Press the mat away with the right arm so that you're not sinking the shoulder towards the ear of the right side. Take a deep breath in, and then exhale, take left hand to the ground, right knee to the ground to meet left knee. And then just circle around a little bit. Let's give our wrists a little bit of a break, so maybe dropping the tops of the feet down, walking the hands back, and just shaking the wrists out. So if you need to take a break ever and just roll your wrists out, go ahead and do that. So when we first began yoga, I mean, we are bipeds, so we aren't meant to be bearing weight onto our wrists. So this feels really uncomfortable in the beginning. So this is why it's so important to press down and use the strength of your forearms rather than just dumping into the delicate bones and the muscles around the wrists. And your arms and your forearms will get used to it. I've got really strong forearms because I've been practicing yoga for so long. the strength will build up. And then let's come into a little bit more of an upright pose here. We're going to come into some opening of the hip flexors again, which again is really, really important when we're sitting at a desk, when our body is constantly in this really closed position here of our hip flexors. We want to lengthen the hip flexors and open them up. So let's come into tabletop, and let's take our left foot up towards our left thumb. So we're going to use the strength of our core to gently draw the foot forward. So drawing it in towards the nose, and then using the strength of our core to draw it forward, or maybe you use your hand to walk it forward a little bit. And then what we're looking for is this nice 90-degree angle with our knee over our ankle, and then our knee in line with our hip. So the right toes can be tucked or untucked, deciding whatever feels better for you as far as balance goes. And then just take the hands on top of the thigh, feeling what it feels like to just open up here as we press into the left foot, all four corners of the left foot. So feel the big toe mound and the pinky toe mound really pressing into your mat, and then the whole sort of horseshoe arch of your heel grounding down into the floor. Straighten out through the shoulders. And then if it feels okay, you can begin to maybe press down with the left hand and lift that right arm nice and high. And if that feels okay and you think you can release the left hand off the thigh, lift the left arm nice and high. So what we're getting here now is this beautiful stretch in through the right hip flexor. And if it feels like you aren't getting enough, go ahead and push back a little bit so that your right hip is over your right knee, and then draw the tailbone under. So tucking the tailbone under and really firing up through that right glute, feeling what that feels like, and then reaching up a little bit higher through that right arm. As you tuck the right glute forward, you should feel a deeper stretch into that right hip flexor. And then maybe you come forward slightly, bringing the left knee over the left ankle a little bit more. Take a deep breath in. Exhale it out. Inhale in. And then exhale the hands down to surround that left foot. And then just sweep the left foot back to meet the right foot. Come back and sit up on your shins or find child's pose, just giving ourselves a little break off of our wrists again. And then we'll try that all on the right side. I hope you're feeling great. If it feels right for you, take a little bit of a break to just connect with your heart space again. It feels so beautiful to me, the rising sun coming and shining on my face. I have some interesting birds flying around. I'm trying to learn the names of them all. So far I know that there's an egret there. I've seen a sandhill crane. I've seen a great blue heron. We have an alligator in our pond in the back. So there's all kinds of interesting wildlife going on here. I'm feeling super blessed to be here at this moment. Let's come back down into tabletop, and let's use our core to draw our right foot forward. So taking our right knee into our chest, and then using our core to step the right foot forward. And then taking both of our hands onto our right thigh, or right top of our right knee, and then pressing down through all four corners of that right foot. So really feel the pinky toe mound and the big toe mound. So the base of the big toe pressing in so that you're not onto the outside edge of your foot or the inside edge of your foot. You're feeling your whole foot grounded, including your heel. And then press into your thighs. Raise both arms high into the sky, or one and then the other, feeling what feels best for you. And then maybe coming out of it a little bit again. Taking this time the tailbone, tucking it under, drawing the pubic bone forward, firing up through the left glute this time as you really engage through the left glute, and then drawing that left arm up. Oh, you'll feel that beautiful stretch through the hip flexor now. And then keeping that engagement through the left glute, maybe coming forward a little bit, drawing the knee over the ankle a little bit more. Noticing how it feels on your knees. If it's too much, getting that padding for yourself so that you can really prolong your yoga practice using whatever props you need to help you get into these poses most comfortably without injury. Take a deep breath in, and then exhale the hands down to surround the right foot. Take the right foot back to meet the left and see what it feels like to sit back on top of your shins now. It should feel nice and open in your hip flexors. It should feel great. Let's take our hands back down into tabletop. Tuck the toes under and begin to straighten up through the tailbone, straightening it up and pushing the mat away as you take the tailbone high towards the sky. So just seeing how that feels for you. Keep your knees very, very bent, and then start to walk your hands back towards your feet, keeping your knees as bent as you possibly can. So it may be that you're way up here, and that's just fine. You're going to grab opposite elbows, and you're going to take the weight into the balls of the feet, and you're just going to let your whole body hang right on top of your thighs, your bent knees. So the crown of the head is just hanging and drawing down towards the mat. You're finding tractioning in your spine, in your neck. And you're just noticing how your body feels as you relax over into your hamstrings here. Notice if you're clenching through your jaw. Notice if you're not letting your head hang, and see if you can let your head really just hang. And then take your hands or your thumbs to your hip creases. Use your core, engage your core to your spine, and with a flat back, rise all the way up. Beautiful. Inhale the arms up and overhead. And then exhale the hands to heart center. I'm just going to check that you can see me, that I'm in the picture here. I'm pretty sure I'll be there. I'll just raise it up a little bit. We're just going to come into a little bit of a balanced pose here today. Coming into tree pose, which is a pretty common pose. A lot of pictures that you'll see people doing yoga, they'll be coming into tree pose. So let's learn how to do that today. Come high onto the ball of the left foot. So just letting the left foot just come onto the tippy toes here and seeing what that feels like. Maybe take the hands onto the hip creases. And then ground down through all four corners of that right foot, the way that we did when we were in our standing lunge there. It's called Asana. Or our, not our standing lunge, our low lunge it's called. And then begin to use the strength of your left hip flexor to just lift the knee in line with the hip. So if right away you're feeling really wobbly, then make sure you're close to something that you can hold on to, a countertop or a table or a wall. Could go next to a wall so that you can still see me. And then holding onto something or not, just let the knee come out to the side. So as you inhale, bring the knee out to the side. And then exhale, bring it into the center, finding internal and external rotation of the hip. The same way that we did at the beginning of class in that pose on our back, Supta Baddha Konasana, when the knees came out to the side. We're using that same kind of motion. So both strengthening and finding mobility in that hip joint. We're actually bringing what's called synovial fluid into this ball and socket joint right now. And then leaving the knee out to the side, go ahead and attach your foot somewhere on your leg. So most yogis will draw the knee, the foot right up into their inner thigh. They'll press their heel into their inner thigh. That might feel too advanced for you, and you may want to come somewhere like here. Super important not to press your heel into your knee joint. So take it down onto your calf, or maybe it feels right for you to just kickstand it. So taking the toes onto the ground and the heel just above your ankle bone. That's perfectly acceptable for your tree, wherever feels right for you. And then take your hands to your heart center once again, letting your thumbs connect with your heart center, and then drawing up through the crown of the head so that you feel as though the crown of the head is a little bit closer towards the sky than it was when you first came into this pose. Feeling the tailbone angle down towards the ground and feeling all four corners of that right foot grounded down into the earth. And then noticing how this feels. And then deciding if you want to maybe take your prayer hands up and above you, seeing how that feels. Challenging your balance a little bit more. Maybe one hand is holding onto something. And the point of yoga when we challenge ourselves into these balanced poses is to begin to build up all of those stabilizing muscles so that we build muscle memory and physical memory so that when we come back into this pose again, it feels more and more accessible to us every time. So be so patient with yourself right now. Draw the hands back to heart center and then release that left foot down onto the ground. Just shake it out, shake everything out. And see if you can speak so kindly to yourself this next time. So maybe you became a little bit frustrated with yourself in that pose if you weren't able to balance without the help of something. And see if you can speak to yourself in your own inner cheerleader voice this time, instead of saying, oh, why can't I balance? And how does she make it look so easy? Or I used to be able to do this. Just keep being so positive to yourself. Like, keep going. You've got this. You're going to get it one day. It's going to be easier one day. That's a better way to get your mind and your body connection in a more positive talk frame. So once again, grounding down into all four corners of the left foot, and then finding where you want to put your foot this time on this side. Actually, we're going to draw the knee in line with the hip. So we're going to find that little exercise where we move into the mobility of the hip joint. So exhaling as you open the right knee out. I'm mirroring you. Inhale, bring it in. Exhale, open. Inhale in. And if you feel any little clicks or pops, that's totally normal. Bone moving over bone is totally normal as long as there's no pain. So don't worry about what you hear or feel. Sometimes those cracks or pops are just a release of air that's trapped in the joint, so it's totally nothing to worry about. And on the last time, just leave it out and go ahead and attach the foot wherever feels right for you. Ground down through the left foot, draw up through the top of the head, feeling so long in your spine now, and then taking the hands to heart center. Maybe you have one hand holding onto a wall, and that's totally fine. Noticing how it feels and just enjoying all of those wobbles that you feel in that left ankle. That's totally normal. That's that mind-body connection happening, trying to keep you upright. That's what our body does. That's how we're able to not fall over all the time. So just go with that. And then noticing if you'd like to challenge yourself by bringing the arms up this time. And if that was super easy for you, maybe you open your branches and you make them sway a little bit from side to side the way tree branches would sway in the breeze. I'm sure you can hear the birds around me now. And then drawing the hands to heart center, feeling that connection with your own heart one more time. And then taking the foot down to the ground, shaking everything out. If you were in my class, we'd be clapping right now, but I won't do that because it seems kind of silly for me to clap by myself. If you feel like clapping for yourself, I highly encourage that kind of positive behavior. And then we're going to come down onto our backs. Let's try something that looks like it's challenging and hard, but really isn't that hard. Most people can actually do it, even beginners. So let's take the feet together. Let's take the inner ankles together, the inner knees together, the inner thighs together. Let's take our hands to heart center again in what's called prayer hands or Anjali Mudra. Maybe you've heard it called Namaste hands. And really engage and begin to come up onto the balls of our feet. So onto our tippy toes. Look down at the ground at something that's not moving. And use the strength of your quads to just sit the weight back behind you and see if you can release yourself all the way down in what's called a toe sit. Maybe you want to take your hands down to help yourself balance, but maybe you want to try and just see what it feels like to sit up here and balance. We're opening up through the plantar fascia of the feet again. Finding a moment of stillness and balance. And letting the knees come apart, taking the hands back behind you and one in front of you, and lowering yourself down onto the mat. You did so great, yogis. We're going to come into a nice cool down now, a little bit of a stretch. So go ahead and grab behind the backs of your knees and slowly release yourself down to the ground. And once you're down onto the ground, you can find that full body stretch one more time. So taking the arms up overhead and release the feet down and far away from you. Stretching like you're waking up for the second time today. And then leaving the left leg extended, we're going to draw the right knee into the chest. So we did this at the beginning of class. This is called wind release pose. It helps to push and compress all of the internal organs of the body, so it's a great detoxing pose. So we're moving up through the colon, the ascending colon here. And then as we draw the knee across our chest, we move across the transverse colon. So draw it across the chest. And then just let the right toes just reach down towards the floor to the left side of your mat. And keep drawing the left or the right shoulder blade down towards the mat. And let the right arm cactus up. So palm faces up, the elbows in line with the shoulder, and the back of the hand rests down onto the ground. And then you can gaze over at that right elbow, coming into our last final twist. So you should be feeling this beautiful stretch and opening through the whole right side of your outer hip. If you're holding your breath, remind yourself to breathe big, deep, and complete inhales and exhales. How heavy can you get in your upper body, just letting it sink down into the support of the earth. Using the strength of that left hand to gently draw the inner right knee towards the earth a little bit more. And then as you inhale, bring the right knee back into the chest. And then extend it all the way out. And then take the left knee into the chest. Give yourself a nice hug. And then use the right hand to gently draw the knee across the body. Take the left arm into cactus shape, so the elbows in line with the shoulder, and the elbows bent 90 degrees. And you just keep reaching those left toes towards the right side of the mat, using the right hand to gently draw the inner left knee towards the ground. And then the left shoulder blade reaches towards the earth. The gaze comes over towards the left elbow. Close the eyes. Come into the breath. And then as you inhale, draw the left knee back into the body. Hold on to the left kneecap and then draw the right knee into the body as well. Hold on to the right kneecap. And then just open the knees out to the side and then make little circles as you hold on to your kneecaps. Getting into the hips one more time, this rotation. Bringing more fluid and lubrication and motion into the hip joints. And then maybe changing directions. So knees come toward chests and then feet come towards mat. And these big circular movements. Using the kneecap to sort of paint large circles in an imaginary wall above you. And coming into the last pose called Happy Baby, leaving the knees close into the chest, reaching on the inside edges of your inner thighs and grabbing for the outside edges of your feet or maybe your big toes. Seeing what feels best for you, and then dropping the head back down and just seeing if from this place you can begin to take the soles of the feet up towards the sky. This may or may not be accessible to you, and that's just fine. We're just trying to reach the tailbone down towards the earth and get an opening through the inner groins in this position. If it doesn't work for you, that's totally fine. You can keep the heels closer into the groin. If you are open enough into the hips to achieve this point, just rocking back and forth on the low back a little bit. I guess, looking like a happy baby. Letting the back of the head be so heavy. And just really opening and enjoying that opening through the inner thighs. And then releasing, drawing the knees into the chest one more time, but this time take the face up towards the knees. Find yourself into a tight ball, pull your shoulders to your ears, clench up your face, clench your jaw, do all of the things I told you not to do in class. And then take a deep breath in, and then as you exhale, open up into what's called Shavasana. So just let everything fall down onto your mat. Open your legs nice and wide, so take up space on your mat so that your feet can splay out, the pinky toes can draw down towards the earth, and then let your arms come far away from your body too, with the palms facing up, the fingers curling in. Rock the head from side to side. Release your neck. And then feel the entire body just sinking down into the support of Mother Earth here. So take a gentle body scan and notice what muscles are still gripping or tensing. You send your breath there, ask them to calm down and give up their need to work. Keep walking the shoulder blades in towards one another so that the shoulders are far away from your ear tips. The back of the skull is so heavy. Shoulder blades so heavy. Back of the hands sinking into the earth. The low back heavy and spreading. Outside edges of your feet sagging towards the earth. The eyeballs are heavy in their sockets. And all of the tiny muscles on your face just relax. Forehead is so smooth. And you find such beautiful stillness here that you can actually imperceptibly feel the rhythm of your own heartbeat. As you lie in this stillness, this peacefulness, you're reminded of just how beautiful life feels when you're not organizing worlds and checking off to-do lists and rushing from place to place. It's in the stillness that we begin to recognize who we really are. Pay attention to our thoughts. Find and nurture that gratitude for this beautiful life that we are living. And even if the world is in somewhat of panic or despair, we can still find this beautiful appreciation for small moments like this. Small moments of mindfulness, presence. this is what it means to be truly alive. Connect with ourselves, connect with nature, connect with each other. We are all interconnected. We are all the same. As Baba Ram Das says, we are all just trying to walk each other home. Take your hands and place them back on top of your heart space where you met at the beginning of class. And breathe into your heart space. Take a deep breath all the way in. Open your mouth and let it out. 2 more, just like that. Inhale all the way up to the top of your throat. The biggest breath that you'll probably take all day. And recognize how beautiful you really are, how valuable you are, and how needed you are in this world. And all of the things that you do for others, they don't go unnoticed. You are beautiful and powerful, sacred. And the whole universe is inside of you. Draw one knee and then the other into the chest. And then just rock on to your left side for a moment, pausing in what's known as fetal pose. You can extend your left arm up and above you, use your left bicep as a pillow for your left temple. And in this pause, find one more moment for reflection, how you feel right now. Maybe taking a little mental photograph in your mind of how you feel so that you can remember how to come back to this room. Imagine yourself here on your mat, the birds chirping. How good you feel for having moved your body and stretched and breathed. Yoga is a reflection of who we are. It shows us who we are every time we come onto our mat. So embrace yourself in all the different varied ways that you show up for yourself. And accept yourself deeply and completely. Use your right hand to press into the earth. Extend your right leg out. And gently sit up into an easy seated position. Crossing at the ankles or letting the ankles come one in front of each other. Just sitting up tall for a moment, taking the hands back to heart center. Finding all that length through the spine, through the top of the head. A little smile comes to your face. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your practice. Such an honor to guide you. I hope you enjoyed this beginner's yoga video. And if you did, please like and share this video. Comment down below what you did like about it. If you noticed anything different about yourself or about your thoughts or about your ideas of yoga practice, please let me know. If you noticed the birds chirping in the background, please comment that. Namaste, my friends. I will try and put out as many of these videos as I can to keep you all going on your yoga journey and get us through this quarantine. We will make it. Until next time, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram, I do some interesting stories there once in a while. I'm at Mind, Body, Spirit in Balance. At Mind, Body, Spirit in Balance. Did you see that bird? I'll see you next time.